The letter arrived on a Thursday morning. Eleanor had been waiting for the mail, as she often did. At 78 years old, she still enjoyed the small routines that filled her days: coffee in the morning, reading the newspaper at the kitchen table, and taking a walk around the neighborhood when the weather was good. That morning there was an envelope waiting for her. It looked official, and her name was printed clearly across the front. Inside was a letter congratulating her. Eleanor had apparently won a luxury car. She read the letter twice, then a third time. According to the notice, her name had been selected in an international sweepstakes promotion, and the prize was worth more than $100,000. At first, she laughed because she assumed it had to be a mistake. She had never entered a lottery and had never bought a ticket. But the letter looked convincing. It contained official-looking seals, a reference number, a telephone number, and detailed instructions explaining how she could claim her prize. Eleanor put the letter down, and shortly afterward the phone rang. The man on the other end already knew her name. He congratulated her and explained that the letter she had received was genuine. He assured her that the car was real, the prize was real, and the money was waiting for her. There was only one problem. Before the prize could be released, Eleanor needed to pay a small processing fee. She hesitated, but the man seemed to understand her concerns. He explained that legitimate prizes often came with taxes and administrative costs, and he assured her that once the payment was made, the car would be delivered. Eleanor asked how much she needed to pay. The amount was several $1,000s, which was a lot of money for her. But the man reminded her of what she would receive in return: a brand new luxury car worth more than $100,000. Eleanor agreed, and she sent the money. The next morning, the phone rang again. It was the same man, but this time he had bad news. The prize had been delayed, and a new fee was required. Eleanor was confused and reminded him that she had already paid. He apologized and explained that the additional charge was unexpected, but he assured her that once this payment was made, there would be no further delays. So Eleanor paid again. And then she paid again. Every time she got close to receiving her prize, another problem appeared. First, there was a government tax, then an insurance payment. After that came a customs charge, followed by a delivery fee. The names changed, and the reasons changed, but the demand never did. They needed more money. And every time Eleanor began to question what was happening, the people on the phone reassured her. They knew exactly what to say. They told her that the prize was almost ready, and reminded her that she had already come too far to stop now. They warned her that if she refused to pay the next fee, everything she had already paid would be lost. And slowly, something changed. Eleanor was no longer chasing a luxury car. She was trying to recover the money she had already lost. That is how these scams survive. The victim isn't simply asked for money once. Instead, the victim is pulled deeper into the scheme. One payment becomes two, and two become five. Eventually, the person on the phone is no longer asking for money simply to release the prize. They are asking for more money because the victim has already invested so much. By the time Eleanor finally realized that the car was never coming, the people behind the phone calls were already talking to someone else. Another name, another number, another elderly person, another potential winner, and another opportunity to turn a promise into a payment. The story you're about to hear is not Eleanor's story. Eleanor is a fictionalized character created to illustrate the tactics used in the real scheme. But the scam itself was real. Investigators eventually uncovered an international operation connected to Jamaica that targeted elderly victims with promises of enormous sweepstakes prizes. The victims were told that they had won. They were assured that their money and prizes were waiting for them. Then they were told that they had to pay before they could receive what they had supposedly won. For some victims, the payments continued for months. For others, the losses reached into their life savings. In total, investigators say the scheme stole more than $9 million from elderly victims. And behind those phone calls was a network of people who understood something very important about human psychology. They knew that hope could be just as powerful as fear. Sometimes the easiest way to steal someone's money isn't to threaten them. It's to convince them that they've just won a fortune. Federal investigators eventually traced the operation to a man named Jordan Trought, a Jamaican national who joined the fraud ring around 2021 and rose to become one of its leaders, directing operations that ultimately spanned a full decade of activity. According to prosecutors, callers working under Trought and his co-conspirators didn't use their real names. They introduced themselves with ordinary, forgettable ones, the kind that wouldn't stand out or raise suspicion, names like David Miller. The same alias could be reused across hundreds of calls to hundreds of different victims, which made the operation harder to trace and gave each caller a kind of interchangeable anonymity. It wasn't one man's voice victims were responding to. It was a role, played by whoever happened to be on shift that day. If a victim ever tried to verify the caller by name, there was nothing real underneath it to find: no company record, no employee, just a placeholder identity built to be forgotten as quickly as it was given. What made this version of the scheme especially damaging was how far the access went. Prosecutors say that in some cases, the callers didn't just collect payments, they gained direct control of victims' bank accounts, moving money out and through them without the victim fully realizing what was happening. Once someone hands over online banking credentials or lets a helpful caller walk them through a supposed verification step, the fraud stops depending on repeat phone calls at all. The account itself becomes the ongoing source of funds. Money sent by check, money order, wire transfer, Zelle, and Venmo moved from elderly victims in the United States to associates of the operation, and some of it, according to prosecutors, was funneled into a car dealership Trought ran in Jamaica, a legitimate-looking business used, in part, to absorb the proceeds of an entirely illegitimate one. Prosecutors say Trought personally is responsible for more than $6 million stolen from over 100 victims between 2021 and his arrest in Jamaica in August 2025. He was extradited to the United States and, in June 2026, pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit wire fraud, mail fraud, and bank fraud, a charge that carries a maximum sentence of up to 30 years in federal prison. As part of his plea, he agreed to pay more than $6.1 million in restitution and forfeiture. There are a few things worth taking from this case. The first is that hope is just as exploitable as fear. Most warnings about scams focus on threats and urgency. This one worked because it offered something people wanted to believe, and belief, once it takes hold, is hard to argue yourself out of, especially when the story keeps being reinforced by someone who sounds patient and reasonable on the other end of the line. The second is that a request for any fee before a prize is delivered is, on its own, the clearest sign something is wrong. Legitimate sweepstakes never require winners to pay in advance. And any organization that says otherwise is describing a rule that doesn't exist anywhere in real prize administration. The third is that escalating requests are the pattern itself, not a sign that a real prize is simply taking longer than expected to arrive. Each additional fee was designed to feel smaller than walking away from everything already paid, which is exactly why the losses in this case kept compounding instead of stopping after the first payment was made. If you or someone you love receives a call or letter like this, the safest response is to treat any prize you didn't personally enter for as false by default, regardless of how official the paperwork looks or how convincingly it's presented over the phone. Never send money, gift cards, or banking access to claim a prize of any kind, and never agree to let anyone you don't personally know remotely access your accounts. If a call ever asks for that kind of access, hang up immediately and contact your bank directly, using a number you already have on file, not one provided during the call. Eleanor, like the real victims behind this case, wasn't foolish for wanting to believe good news was finally arriving. That instinct is exactly what makes people human, and it's not something anyone should have to train themselves out of feeling. The people running schemes like this one didn't have to invent a fear to exploit. They only had to borrow a feeling everyone already carries, the hope that, someday, something good might simply happen to you. Thank you for watching. If you found this story informative, please like the video and subscribe for more real cases, investigations, and stories that can help you stay informed and protect yourself from scams.